Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity here today to come and talk with you. My name is Brian Dieters, and I am somebody that grew up in Quincy, which I'll talk about in a little bit, taught in Morton for almost 20 years, and I have been living in Switzerland. So I am the Swiss guy. I know that's something that needs to be addressed, and I'm happy to address it. I know for a fact that living in Switzerland the last couple years is actually a great strength for my run. I really believe that. It's given me a chance to meet people from all over the world, to see what's been going on in our country in the last couple years from a different lens, but at the same time really being into the pulse of things because of technology and coming back. So I know for a fact it's a positive thing, but I have to sell that. And I completely understand people who have reservations towards that, who feel that it is something that is a detriment, and that maybe it should be something that I shouldn't be here. And I respectfully disagree very much with that. The other day on social media, I had a response from a young lady about me being in the race and living overseas, and maybe I should not think about it. I should give the opportunity to the other candidates to be the ones representing us. And that maybe I should just wait and try again in 2 years. And my response to her, which I feel really passionate and genuine about, is that I disagree. That I think now is the time, that time is of the essence, and that I am a fresh option. I am the fresh option to really genuinely, potentially have a Democrat win this district for the first time in 100 years. That's a big statement. It's a challenging statement. It's one I'm excited to take on. It's one our campaign is excited to take on. But I do think that I have some of the things needed to make people think differently in this district. My message is time to heal. And it's a message of unity. And it's a message, I think, that speaks to not only Democrats, progressives, but also conservatives. And we're running with that. Because I know one thing's for certain, people are really tired of the divide that we're seeing. On social media, I've tried to address that. I hope you have had an opportunity to see some of the videos that we're putting out. It's unorthodox to campaigning, but I'm not a politician. I know the other gentlemen have historically not as well, but they have pursued this before, of course, in 2014 and 2016. And I'm coming to the table with this approach that I am a teacher. It is what's drawn me to this. I'm fully in tune with the fact that we need a different approach. As a history teacher for the last 20 years, I definitely have an understanding of what has got us to this point in our country where we're so absolute, where we don't want to listen to each other. And we need to think about that, and it needs to be addressed. I think even more so as a sociology teacher, I am in tune to this cultural divide. You know, what is it that's driving us to behave and believe the way we are? How are we being motivated? In many cases, how are we being manipulated by the things that are out there? And I think maybe even more significant to my run is the fact that I've been a coach and that I've been, developing skills to motivate, to inspire, to organize. And I think these things are all very relevant to the whole idea of being in politics. So I think I bring that to the table. But I think more importantly is this message of commonality that we're trying to bring across. And I think that I am able to do that because of where I've grown up. As I mentioned, I grew up in Quincy. My name, Dieters, certainly is a name that I'm fortunate to have in this type of a situation because it is it's a family business dairy in West Central Illinois. Maybe some of you, if you've lived in that region, grew up drinking Dieters milk, but it's been in your refrigerator and it's been on your table, for years and years and years. If you're over the age of 35, you drank Dieters milk. So I think that that's an important message. And I think what my family's business brought is this whole idea of hard work, Midwestern values, And I think that that's something that we hope to draw into. I've lived throughout the district. Even though I've been in Switzerland for 39 of my 44 years, I lived throughout the district. So I am the 18th district. And I think to some degree, I often think when people are, questioning the fact that I've been overseas for a little bit, which by the way was with my wife's job, she's with Caterpillar, and it's something that, a lot of people take these ISE positions. So I think that resonates with a lot of people too, actually. That he's been overseas, he's been with CAT. It's allowed me to pursue teaching at an international school and working with diplomat kids and business kids from business people from all the world, and seeing things from a completely different angle and perspective. And I know, like I said, it's an important tool. And I've lived in Morton, taught in Morton, in Tazewell County. I lived in Bloomington, lived in Dunlap, lived in East Peoria, lived in Peoria. So I've been around a lot in the East. I've been around a lot in the West with regards to this district. And our message of commonality, I think, is really what we're going after. I'm also very blessed to have the support of my beautiful, talented wife and my children, who will be 12 in a couple of weeks. So I'm a family guy. I'm a family man. And I know that that's something that, too, very much resonates to voters anywhere, but certainly here as well. So that's why I'm here. I genuinely have been drawn to pursue this. I know that that's also a challenge. I know that the other candidates have been out and about and pushing their message hard, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for Mr. Miller, Professor Rodriguez, who I've yet to meet. I'm hopeful to meet him here in a minute, and what they're trying to do. There's no question. I mean, they're very intelligent men, very much men of integrity. That said, I think that I provide something very different based on the information that I just provided to you, and I'm hopeful that resonates and that we can find your support, because we desperately need it. We need to keep getting our message out. Social media is a big part of it. I'm here now. I'm committed to being here throughout most of the time period of the primary. It's definitely a challenge. In March, we're running a 19 counties in 19 days campaign where we're going to try to get to every county. We're trying to promote those things on our social media sites, and we're hopeful to get a lot of support. I'm going to be out this week and the next week after that talking with the members of the AFL-CIO, the local AFT teacher unions, the NAACP. I've met with healthcare officials. I'm meeting with members of churches and organizations in the Peoria area. We've run a lot of radio shows. I've got another one in Bloomington here this week. So definitely trying to get the message out that it is time to heal. And
okay, if you could wrap up so then we can
I'm sorry. I know.
Absolutely.
Real quickly, the issues we're looking at, obviously education is close to my heart. The infrastructure and farming in this district are very important to address. And we have specific platform things that we're going to be bringing out, one each week through February on social media with videos and articles, and then some social media, Facebook Live stuff. So we're going to try that kind of stuff. And equal rights as a progressive is something that we're very passionate about. Whether it's inequalities to social classes, we have to push the right to work, the right to unionize, stopping those programs of right to work from the other countries. But I'm on board with supporting those guys. Women's rights are very, very, very close to my heart. My daughters are my driving force. And I know I'm going on a little bit long, so I'm trying to wrap up. Our strategies, we've been pretty successful, I think, happily, about raising money. We've basically started raising money about the middle of November. Through the end of the year, we raised about $5,000 of just donations. We've got fundraisers this week. We think we're going to be about $35,000 to $4,000 in these couple fundraisers this week. So heading into the end of the month here, we'll have about $9,000 that we've raised just from donations and getting our word of mouth, and we just need to keep going from there.
My name's Darrell Miller, I'm a lifetime farmer, western part of McLean County, candidate ran against Aaron Schock 2014. I think the Democrats in the 18th Congressional District have already made a big statement by 3 people running for the nomination. And I think that makes a statement that there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the way things are going, with LaHood and the president even more so. And I consider myself to be part of Team Blue. And we want to make a statement and offer some alternatives. I'm a farmer, and my lifetime tendency is I want to fix things and make things work. And we all know the current situation in the country is the antithesis of that. The current administration, party in power, can't even accomplish things they agree on. They all want to fix CHIP. They don't fix CHIP. When the president said he's going to discontinue DACA, most of them said, we want to fix DACA. They haven't fixed DACA. They all want tax reform, and they didn't want to raise the deficit. They couldn't do tax reform without raising the deficit. So that in itself is self-evident. There's a dysfunction with the party in power. It almost goes without saying, what everyone wants to fix is health care, jobs, and I want to talk about tax reform. Health care is not on the front burner, on the front headlines anymore, but every month, most of us face health care in our premiums, in our costs. And the thing that stands out about health care, the elephant in the room, is its costs. It costs too much. The government can't afford health care. Employers can't afford health care. Employees can't afford health care. We pay almost more than twice as much as other countries in the world that are industrialized like we do. And paying more money is not going to solve the problem. In 1965, this country spent about 5% of our GDP on health care. Of course, we all know now we pay about 17% of our GDP on health care. If we spend 20 or 23% of our GDP on health care, is that going to solve it? No. None of us or our employers, can't spend almost a quarter of our income on health care. That's not the direction to go. Of course, we know we want to contain costs, and on health care, I'm of the opinion, politically in this country, nobody is going to pass some big, comprehensive solution to health care. Republicans couldn't do it when they had all 3 branches of government. The Democrats passed the Affordable Care Act by 1 vote in the Senate. When they passed it, it's not going to happen. We are going to make progress on health care by fixing it one step at a time. Maybe that's not what we want to happen, but I'm convinced that's what's going to happen. I want to be a part of that. We have a good base with the Affordable Care Act. And if it would work, if people would let it work, it'd work better. But even the proponents of it say it needs fixes. I got a whole list of fixes I won't take your time with now. But Medicare and Medicaid, we spend about 3% of our GDP on Medicare right now. In 30 years, if the current slope continues, we're going to spend 6%. The Affordable Care Act had some good suggestions. The Affordable Care Act allowed for proposals to lower Medicare costs. One was bundling instead of fee-for-service. And already good bundling progress has been made on all kinds of things like dialysis and joint replacement, cardiac care. And Republicans axed it. It's over. They're not, those fixes aren't progressing anymore. The Affordable Care Act also allowed for something called cost sharing, where the provider would team with Medicare, and if together they could lower costs, then the provider would share half of the savings from that. That was making progress. It was already saving money. People were starting to innovate. Republicans stopped it. We're not making progress in those areas anymore. It seems to me those are no-brainers, that we have to continue down those paths. The Social Security already, since it was begun, allows for HHS to allow states to have pilot programs to lower Medicaid costs. And states, for some reason, started doing that in 2007, even before the Affordable Care Act. Rhode Island and Indiana, now Texas, and even very Democratic New York has asked for waivers from HHS to try to lower Medicaid costs. It's a state-by-state effort. Those have to continue because that's how we're going to make progress. A lot of people talk about single payer. There's a lot of things to be said for single payer, but politically, you can guess how old I am. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. So I want something that's going to happen in my lifetime. Although, there's one way to look at this that I think is very interesting. You look at countries that have single payer programs. You know, we look at the cost of single payer, people that have done estimates, and say, oh man, we can't afford that. But people that have single payer are paying less per person than we are. So you have to think, okay, now why is it too expensive when they have single payer and they're paying less? I think we're going to end up someplace like Germany. Germany doesn't have single payer, but they have very highly regulated insurance. And I think politically, that's the only path open for us. Because politically, we can't go to single payer. The country would blow up. Although there are some steps, I think something we do right now is to, okay, people talk about you can let people buy into Medicare at age 55. I think something even more politically possible is to buy into Medicare Advantage at age 55, because that's run by a private company, but it's heavily regulated by the government, and so that's a hybrid of a market approach and a government option approach. And politically, I think that should be a step we can take together. I'm all about common ground. What common ground do we have, and where can we go from here? And I also have a habit I can't break of, I like to quote Republicans to themselves. And there's all kinds of things you can quote from Ronald Reagan to Republicans. Says, now Ronald Reagan said this, why don't you want to do that? If I have time, I'll give a couple examples. About this tax reform. The elephant in the room about tax reform is we blew a hole in the deficit. For the last 7 years, I count there's been 5 tax reform proposals. And all of them have stuck by the principle of broaden the base, lower the rate, be revenue neutral. Now, the Republicans said, well, let's broaden the base, lower the rates, and raise the deficits. What happened to revenue neutral? Why are we giving up on revenue neutral? Probably the reason we had to is we had to have a corporate tax reform. And I believe we had to have corporate tax reform. It's been about 11 months now. I don't know if all of you remember all the FBI cars lined up in front of Caterpillar going and taking their files out. That was just last winter because global corporations are really forced to find ways around our high corporate rates. Now, high corporate 35% rate isn't a problem for domestic companies, but companies like Caterpillar, it's a very interesting story. They're basically taking parts out of Morton and selling them around the world, but first they're selling them to a place in Switzerland, and so that's where all the profits are, and so they were paying 4% tax on that. That's quite a savings, and so there's quite an incentive. I don't know if it's legal or not. I'm not a tax attorney. It might be legal. I don't know. But we can't police global corporations enough. We have to lower the tax rate. But domestic companies got a windfall, especially retailers. Think Walmart and Amazon. I mean, they just got a big corporate tax break windfall. My proposal, it's on my website. It's basically lower corporate tax rate to 15%, but treat dividends and capital gains as ordinary income. You're basically moving the tax burden from the corporation to the shareholder. Now, it's very easy to explain why that works for dividends. It's a little touchier for capital gains. The merits of this approach is it's revenue neutral. You don't blow a big hole in your deficit. And domestic corporations, those shareholders have to bear the burden just like global corporations. So domestic corporations don't get off scot-free. And you don't have this pressure to get rid of all these deductions that hurt us on the domestic side. And the other merit of that approach is that it's bipartisan. That was put together by the Center for Tax Policy, or Tax Policy Center, for which slightly progressive, and the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative. So there are two groups that sat across the table and actually talked, which Congress can't do. And it doesn't blow a hole in the deficit, and it's bipartisan. And no tax policy is going to have any longevity unless it's bipartisan. We all know when things change in Washington, we're going to change this tax law all over again. And that's not good for business. I hate it when I have to restructure my business to take advantage of the tax law. We need to do things for business reasons, not for tax reasons, which, as a footnote, brings up the whole pass-through business part of the tax law. The Wall Street Journal had a headline that said, "Let the pass-through games begin." And what that meant was, this measure is going to be gamed so much. Lawyers are already lining up how we're going to game this, and I'm probably going to become an LLC myself because it's too hard to resist. I have a lower tax bracket, and I can deduct 20% of my income. It's worth it to restructure myself, and everybody and their brother's going to do that. Every doctor's group, every lawyer's group, anybody that has no business reason to do it is going to restructure themselves because you almost have to because of the tax change. And that's a drawback. Let me say one thing on immigration. It's such a heartfelt debate right now. We need a path to legalization. You may or may not be aware of it, that the federal government has contracted to build 5 immigrant detention centers in this country. Brick and mortar centers of all the things we need to build for infrastructure. We're going to build detention centers? That's what we need? That is the plan instead of going toward a Republican can talk as much as they want about how we love immigrants, we want to incorporate them, and why are we building 5 detention centers run by a private prison corporation, Core Civic from Nashville? It used to be Corrections Corporation of America. They changed their name because they had such bad press. And they're who are going to be running these, and well,
bunch of low lives.
They're going to split up family, children from parents, and all kinds of things. I'm living in this country. Is this really happening?
Dear Democratic County Chairs of the 18th District, I regret that I'm unable to meet with you personally this week in Havana, but I had a previous commitment that is occupying my time on Saturday. I appreciate the chance to submit remarks in this note for your consideration. The weekend I will be in Chicago to participate in a public service leadership program developed under the auspices of David Axelrod and the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago. During spring semester 2018, Eureka College is partnering with the University of Chicago to sponsor Bridging the Divide, a public service leadership program. This educational program is designed for freshman and sophomore majors in history and political science. Bridging the Divide is the only program of its kind in the state. 20 student participants will meet for 3 weekend sessions: Chicago, January 12th and 13th, Eureka, February 23rd and 24th, and Springfield, April 6th and 7th, to learn about the differences and challenges that exist in the contemporary politics between the city of Chicago and the rest of downstate Illinois. Were it not for this obligation, I would gladly have met with you to discuss my qualifications to be the Democrat nominee for U.S. Congress in Illinois 18. I'm seeking this position because I believe that we face challenges in the nation today that require responsible leadership at all levels of the federal government, and I believe that our local representative has failed to serve our needs effectively. I do believe that Democrats have an opportunity to flip Illinois 18 in the 2018 midterm election, and I am confident that I can mount a strong challenge to Representative Darren LaHood in a campaign that is based upon issues and competency. I look forward to this possibility of a vigorous general election campaign against Representative LaHood should I be successful in winning the Democratic primaries nomination in the March 20th primary election. Last year, starting on February 23rd in Jacksonville, I began to attend and participate in a series of political events that were associated with the backlash to the 2016 election and the horrible policy agenda of the Trump administration. Since that time, I've been involved in more than 75 politically related events over the course of the past 11 months. It is now quite common for me to be invited on almost a weekly basis to speak at events sponsored by one of the many citizen activist groups that have established themselves across the congressional district. Whenever I am available, I always show up and I always try to deliver a strong, consistent message. We need to change things in Illinois 18. In my estimation, I believe that I have become a better candidate since my first experience at seeking office in 2016. I'm not holding anything back because the stakes are just too high for the district and for the nation. I've spent well over a year studying and reading various books to prepare for policy discussions that are certain to arise in this campaign. I know that I have strong skills as a debater. I feel that I have the confidence to speak with a degree of authority on a wide array of issues that confront the district and the nation in our present moment crisis. I can assure you that I will work as hard as possible and can make sure that the people of Illinois 18 have a chance to have a U.S. representative who shares their concerns and who can be their voice in Washington, D.C. I'm not willing to surrender any ground in this district to the Republicans. I intend to campaign in all counties and bring a message of change and economic opportunity for all to the residents of Illinois 18.